Might stay off.
Is Amanda on?
Amanda's just on.
Someone's told me to watch. So leave that.
We're thinking we'd like to have a review teaching results, so instead of just being on what's happening.
Are we ready, sorry, Council? Right, good evening everyone, and welcome to the meeting of the West Craven Committee. The first item on this evening's agenda is the appointment of the chairperson for the municipal year of 2024-2025. Are there any nominations for the role of chair?
Nominate him for it, please.
Second, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you.
Good evening all, and welcome to this area committee meeting. We have got some procedural items to deal with, not least the appointment of a vice chair. So I'll take that and then we'll do introductions. Tom?
Can I nominate Councillor Nick Strickland, please?
Okay, that's seconded. Yeah, moved and seconded. Thank you very much. All those in favour? Thank you. Right, we'll do introductions around the room. And my name is David Whip. I'm the councillor for Eby and Coates Ward. And as well as being an introduction, this is a sound check because people sat in the audience might not necessarily be able to hear us. So when you're speaking, you're not really talking to me, just this little distance where you're projecting so that they can hear you at the back of the room. If I go to my left, I'm going to test Mr. Walker's projection.
As we do. Good evening, thank you all. David Walker, Assistant Director for Operational Services and Area Committee Coordinator for the West Craven Committee.
Hi, Neil Watson. I'm Assistant Director for Planning, Building Control and Licensing Services.
Nick Strickland, Councillor for Barnoldswick.
Chris Church, Councillor for Barnoldswick.
Susan Land, Councillor for Eby and Coates.
David Hartley, Councillor for Eby and Coates.
Tom Witt, Councillor for Barnoldswick.
Coming over to this side, Lauren.
I'm PC Laura Dorr. I'm based out of Nelson Police Station on the naval team. I'm based at Nelson, but I'm here today to represent the Inspector and Sergeant.
I am Amanda Inman for Eby Town Council.
My name is Yvette Brown. I'm the Community Resuscitation and Gaming Officer for North West Ambulance Service. I'm currently based at Broughton.
I'm Matt Cooper. I'm the Area Director for Cumbria and Lancashire for the North West Ambulance Service.
I'm Dave Dixon. I'm the Sector Manager for the North West Ambulance Service covering East Lancashire. And I work from Burnley, sometimes Barnoldswick.
I'm Joanna, as a Committee Administrator at Pendle Council.
Thank you very much. A few more procedural items and then we're going to go on to NWAS so that they can get themselves off. With apologies to Laura for having to wait until they've done their bit. But item 4 is declaration of interest. This is where any councillors have to declare any prejudicial pecuniary interest that they may have in any items on the agenda. Could I ask if there are any? No. Item 5 is public question time. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to raise issues affecting West Craven that aren't otherwise on the agenda tonight. Are there any? No? Item 6 is the minutes of the last meeting. Will somebody move those? Moved as the correct record, seconded. Thank you very much. Those in favour? Thank you. Now, Sharon from Talbot and stuff, Parish Council said should be here, but should be a few minutes late. Do we have any further apologies, John?
No, you're printing correctly.
Oh, sorry, I overlooked that already. Right, black mark. Right, sorry, we'll go back to item 3. Appointment to court teas. Will somebody move something on that? Yeah, so we're moving the same as what we've had before?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's somebody from each of the parish and town councils. Thank you. Okay, hurrying to get to North West Ambulance Service. So about 12 months ago, we had a presentation from at least 2 of you guys. I don't think all 3 of you were here. Yeah, and you were saying, well, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, and the other's going to happen. So we said, well, we'll invite you back in 12 months' time to see whether the situation has genuinely improved. I know you've got a presentation, so if you want to get into that, and then probably people will have questions for you afterwards.
I apologise for those that going to have to kind of stare backwards with the presentation here, but we have got a presentation. We won't take too long to run through this, and then that'll give you an opportunity for any kind of questions afterwards. We've done the introductions already. So as I said, I'm actually from the area director for Cumbria and Lancashire. So I've got responsibility for kind of service delivery of our operational services across the whole of the Cumbria and Lancashire footprint. I've got Dave here with me who looks after East Lancs for us, and then Dave who's from our community resuscitation team, and they'll both kind of talk a little bit about the East Lancs context and also some of the work we do in community resuscitation. There we go. So a couple of I'm going to start off with some kind of high-level stuff from the NWAS. We've had a really busy year in the last year. I don't expect to read through all that, but I'm going to tell you a few of the highlights in terms of things we've done that we're proud of in the last year, and then a little bit about performance as well, because clearly people are interested in how the ambulance service performs. So in terms of kind of some of those key highlights over the last year, we've been working on our kind of public health offer. So aside of our response to patients who are acutely unwell, we recognise the ambulance service has a role to play in keeping the population well in the first place, because in that investment in improving the health of the population potentially is saving having to spend money in the future on managing patients when they're acutely unwell. And we know that one of the things that can often be an indicator of potential future illness is high blood pressure. And some of you may have experienced having high blood pressure, and that might have been found when you, for example, have gone along to your GP and they've taken your blood pressure. It might have been when you've had it taken in maybe a community pharmacy. But actually we've been doing some pilot work across the footprint of NWAS, looking at how we can share some of the data that we record when we take patients' blood pressure, where that might not be the reason we've been called, but there might be an indication there that the patient has blood pressure that may want some investigation aside of the reason they've called an ambulance. And that's gone down really positively in those areas. We've piloted it, so we're now looking at how we can scale that out to roll it out across the region. And that's about us being able to share that data where we identify someone who might benefit from some intervention with their blood pressure with potentially their general practitioner, or somebody who can take that forward and potentially prevent through management of that blood pressure future problems. We've also worked in the last year to launch access to audio language line and British Sign Language video interpretation for our crews out on the road. So historically, if a crew went to a patient who spoke a different language or someone who needed a sign language interpreter, it was really difficult for that crew to potentially communicate with those patients. But now crews can access language line from their location and also British Sign Language. So if there's a patient that communicates normally in British Sign Language, through the use of video conferencing, we can assist with that translation. We've done a fair bit of work in the last year, particularly here in Lancashire, around recruitment, and our widening access team have been working to support people into employment in the ambulance service that may not historically have considered a career working with NWAS. That includes people who are seeking a job that may not be in employment, but also looking to reach out into those diverse communities that might have not considered a career in the ambulance service previously. And actually what we do now is that across Cumbria and Lancashire and the wider northwest, our staff don't necessarily represent fully the communities that they work in. So we've been working to try and get into those communities where we know we are underrepresented in terms of staffing in the ambulance service, and work with them to encourage them into careers in the ambulance service. And that might be careers as technicians and paramedics working on ambulances, or that might be in our call centres, or it might be in lots of the other roles that the ambulance service have to offer. And then kind of finally, in terms of those highlights there, we did a significant piece of work over the last year around our emergency operations centres to move to a new radio system and a new telephone system in there that's kind of fit for purpose for the 21st century and beyond. We were using technology in our control rooms that was maybe a little bit dated, and what this has allowed us to do is to improve the way we dispatch ambulances, which has an impact upon the way we deliver patient care. And we've also rolled out some technology for our ambulance crews, which means that they can easily access patient records. So where we go to a patient who might have a complex medical history, whereas previously we've not been able to access those records, we can now access the information that's held by the GP about that patient, which will help us in terms of providing treatment, particularly where the patient can't tell us about their history themselves. So it may be that it's either a complex history that they may struggle to explain, or it could be that they're not in a fit state to be able to go through their full medical history. And we can very quickly find out what medication they're on, what allergies they've got, and what treatment they're currently undergoing. As well as that, over the last 12 months since we're last here, we've seen an investment of about £23 million into the North West Ambulance Service. It's allowed us to do a number of things, but two real key things that I think are important to talk about this evening. The first is to increase the amount of ambulances we have on the road, and I'll leave kind of Dave to tell you a little bit about how that's impacted on East Lancs. But secondly, to increase the amount of clinicians we have in our control room. And historically, when you called an ambulance, we took some details and we dispatched an ambulance to that address. But actually we know that an awful lot of patients that ring 999 can be managed without an ambulance being sent to them, can be managed without face-to-face contact by a clinician, and actually can be managed over the telephone. Or we can give some advice to the patient over the telephone from a clinician that might mean that it makes a difference before the ambulance arrives. And we actually now have a significant number more clinicians working in our control room, and we're managing a significant amount of calls each day, either by that clinician being able to talk to the patient and provide advice and guidance that means they don't need any further treatment. That clinician can refer them on to a more appropriate service in the ambulance service, and that might be about finding an appointment with another service, or it might be about signposting them to somewhere else they could go for help, or can provide advice and guidance to an ambulance gets there. And what that does is two things. It means there's a cohort of patients who can get the treatment they require without an ambulance needing to be sent, which is better for the patient, because actually if a clinician can manage them over the telephone, we can do that a lot quicker than an ambulance going to them. But secondly, it means it maintains our ambulances for the patients that need a face-to-face response. So by reducing the amount of patients we send ambulances to, those ones that are acutely unwell and need a face-to-face response will then, it's more likely we'll have an ambulance available to respond to them. In terms of our, what that means for us in terms of our performance, because when we came last year we talked quite a lot about what we were doing to improve our performance across the North West. Well, this is, and we won't go through everything there, but I think the key target on there that we talk about a lot is our what we call Category 2 response. And our Category 2 response is to those patients who are need a face-to-face ambulance, are unwell but are not life-threatening. So these are the majority of our emergency calls that we receive, roughly about 50% of the calls the ambulance service receives. When we came to this time last year, we were probably looking at about 40 minutes, 45 minutes to respond to those patients. And we achieved across the North West 28 minutes last year, and that was against a revised target that had been set by the government of 30 minutes. So we're actually one of the few ambulance services in the UK that achieved that target. Now it's worth pointing out that I say revised target because the actual target is 18 minutes, but there's an acceptance across the NHS at the moment that we're under significant pressure and not all services are achieving what they need to achieve. So the government set a revised target last year for ambulance services of 30 minutes and asked us to work to achieve that. And as I say, we came in at that kind of 28 minutes, or sorry, nearer 29 minutes, but it was under the 30-minute target and one of the kind of best performing ambulance services in the UK. And we're working this year to continue to see improvement around our Category 2 response, because those are those patients that we know, the majority, around about 50% of the people who call an ambulance who do need an ambulance and need that kind of face-to-face response. I'll move on and let Dave talk about the kind of East Lancs perspective.
Yeah, good afternoon. So I'm accountable or responsible for the east of Lancashire, everything this side of Preston. I started my career in the ambulance service nearly 30 years ago here in Barnoldswick. I live in Barrowford. I'm currently based in Burnley. We have seen a big change. I came last year with Matt, and we've seen a really positive trajectory in East Lancashire on performance and outturn. So, I mean, the 25 minutes there for our Cat 2. So far this year to date, we're at 22 minutes, so we're heading down. But one thing we're really good at in East Lancashire, and that's down to the staff, is Matt touched upon not taking patients to hospital. So we've got the lowest conveyance rate, or one of the lowest conveyance rates in the North West region. So that means on an average day around 45% of our patients who are in and out of an ambulance will take to hospital. The rest will either treat at sea or deal with another form. We've been encouraging that locally as well. We've done some pilots on here in Tree where it's local paramedics based out there at the ambulance station who've got, they know the local area, they know what services are available in terms of clinics, GP surgeries, things like that. And we've seen some really positive results in terms of avoiding people needing to go to hospital. As Matt touched upon, a rural setting like Barnoldswick, with one ambulance across the road, that means that ambulance is not treating patients who don't need to go to hospital. That's reserved for people who need cardiac arrest, the last area you mentioned that we really need a timely response. We have had some difficulty with hospital turnaround, so that is when we take patients to hospital, and we've seen it in the press over the last year, ambulances waiting time patients over. Unfortunately, that's not something that doesn't happen here, but we do seem to have fared better in most areas. On the whole, what I would say is we're aiming for you know, the government targets at 30 minutes. We're aiming for 18. I think we'll aim for 5 minutes if it was possible, and that's down to the staff. You know, one thing I think is important to remember locally is the paramedics and technicians and people who respond to the communities in West Craven and Pendle, Hamburg, Blackburn. They live here. You know, the families are here. Everybody wants to do the best. And yes, it's a pleasure to work in East Lancashire. We're quite proud of the results we've had this last 12 months.
Shall we quickly run through the kind of resources we've got here?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit, at peak we've 27 ambulances on across Lancashire, East Lancashire, sorry. We've only got one based in Pendle, technically, because that's the one station at Barnoldswick across the road. With 10, 11 now ambulances at Burnley. Those ambulances are fluid, you know, the ambulance here doesn't just do on the city, they're constantly moving around. When that ambulance gets tasked to an incident from Barnoldswick, we will then look to move available ambulances to cover gaps, so they'll start moving back towards the Pendle. We've also got rapid response cars at Burnley, they cover line area there, they're out for the category 1, 2 of them. So we have got a healthy contingent of ambulances, and that was increased last year. I think we talked about the investment, the urgent emergency care investment fund, so we do benefit from that in the sense that quite a bit we do better than most other areas in the certainly the commercial area. So yeah, and it's nice to come with a pleasant story, because I think the last 2 years on the road we've been really struggling, where it feels like we're turning the corner and the patients are getting a much better response, or the one we deserve really. So good news from me.
Thanks, Dave. Dave touched on there talking about some of the challenges around the hospitals. You'll know where the nearest hospitals are at Blackburn, Airedale and the urgent treatment centre at Burnley. We have seen an increase in hospital handover times, and just to give you an indication, that's kind of over the last year what kind of hospital handover times have looked like at Blackburn. So we have seen that kind of steadily increase. You'll see there that it kind of peaked in the winter months, has come down a little bit since, but not back to the levels we were at last year. And one of our significant challenges as an ambulance service is that if our ambulances are tied up at hospital waiting to hand over patients, they're not available to respond to emergencies in the community. So we work really closely with our partners in the acute trusts to try and reduce the amount of time that ambulances spend at hospitals. I think over the years you've probably suffered less than some of the other areas here in East Lancs, although we've seen, as you can see there, seen it increase over the last winter, and we're working closely with the team in East Lancs in the acute to try and manage some of those challenges.
In numbers in a 24-hour period, we'll take around 10 patients to Blackburn Hospital from a mass. Obviously, Airedale is significantly less, between 6 and 8 patients. So that's the split. Blackburn's quite important, but Airedale will take its own challenges.
So move on now then to talk, and this is something we touched on kind of last year when we were here about community resilience, because one of the things we said is that no matter what we do, how many ambulances we put in the ambulance station across the road, there will be times where those resources are in use and not in the community. And one of the important things that we're keen to do with our communities is make sure that they have that level of resilience. That means when someone is acutely unwell, and time is the significant factor in their chance of survival, that there is a response in that community. And just to put that into context, even if an ambulance arrives within those national targets that are set, even if we get an ambulance to somebody in cardiac arrest in 5 or 6 minutes, if nobody has done anything in that first 5 or 6 minutes, there's nothing the ambulance is going to do when they get there to make any difference. So that resilience in the community is really important. So we're going to talk just briefly before we come to an end about public access defibrillators and about our CFRs. Did you want to kind of pick up and talk a little bit about that?
So going back, yes, I'm a community resuscitation engagement officer. However, before that, I come onto this role, which is funded by the North West Ambulance charity. I'm still a paramedic. I still go out and do some shifts to keep my clinical skills up. I'm quite passionate about this role. I've been in the job covering this Cumbria. I cover not just Lancashire, I cover Cumbria as well, so I'm covering the whole of Cumbria and Lancashire on my own. And my big target for my strategies is about reducing out of hospital cardiac arrest. So I do a lot of work with people like yourselves and communities and building a team that can go out voluntary and teach people how to actually do effective CPR to help save lives. Now, there's more I can discuss. I just want to talk about the defibs. We did raise some funds. Is it on the next slide?
Yeah,
just to go flip it back.
Yeah.
So recently I was presented with a cheque for was it 20,000?
20,000.
Yeah, we got 20,000 from it was Pennine Community Credit Union. Now that money is available for more defibrillators, so that can be used in your area. So I'm going to have a little bit more of a look tomorrow, possibly, looking at, I know you have got quite a few defibrillators in your area, because you are very rural, and we can look at, we're just discussing one being put on the ambulance station actually outside, so that you've got another one available to the public. And it's all right having all these defibrillators, but it's making sure we teach everybody in the community how to do effective CPR, because we need to get on that person's chest immediately. Yes, defibs are important, but getting on that chest and doing CPR can massively have an impact on survival for that person. So we will look into that, and I'll obviously discuss that further with Matt and Dave about how we can access them funds that were raised. So you will have areas that, because you've got to be within 500 metres of each other. So if, say, there's not one within 500 metres and we put one here, that's what we should be aiming at. We have reduced out of hospital cardiac arrest. Now, I'm working currently on a community profile, which is taking me quite a while, but it's going to be a document that's going to be done every year, and it'll show us the areas. So I'm covering East Lancs, Darwin, I can look at Blackpool, Fylde, I look at all areas and look at the reduction of out of hospital cardiac arrest. Some have actually gone up a little bit, some have come down, but when you look at the areas of hotspots, we call them, it's looking at about, it's not always about they've got loads of defibs, it's about where these defibs are. So you can look at figures, well, if there's an hospital in the area, they're going to be different figures to somewhere where there's not an hospital in the area. So if the council want to get me engaged in any events you're having, I'm more than willing to come down. That's a big part of my role, engaging within communities. And I do a lot of work behind the scenes, and I can put my hand up and say, if you need any support for training, I'm sure you're all trained in CPR as a council. If you're not, then get in touch with me. Matt's got, we can send you all our details. But again, I can go on and on all night about cardiac arrest, but we need people to train. We need volunteers to be CFRs. I go into a lot of schools and I try and recruit from that young age to help them get on get a good CV produced so that they can say they're doing some voluntary work, get them trained. And the earlier we train people, the better we've got in the communities. So if there's anything else, if there's any questions, then obviously I'm happy to answer.
So kind of real key things for us, and we talked, like I said last time, we talked about community resilience piece, is around people in the communities being trained so they know what to do if someone has a cardiac arrest, access to public access defibrillators, and those being mapped on our system so that if someone calls 999 we can tell them where their nearest defibrillator is, and we can ask them to go and access that. The kind of the next step is then about our community first responders, and where we have those more rural communities where we can't have an ambulance at the end of every farm track or every road. We work with those community first responders who live in those areas to be able to respond on our behalf until an ambulance arrives. And again, we've talked there about the work we can do to put defibrillators into communities. We've talked about the work we can do to try and promote CPR training in communities, and we also want to try and grow our community first responder offer. And you've seen there was a slide earlier on, kind of skip past it, but we don't actually have a huge amount of community first responders in this area. And historically we did have, but that number has dwindled over the years. We've found that in lots of areas during COVID where people have either drifted away from doing some of the voluntary activities they did before, or their circumstances have changed. So we want to work to increase the amount of community first responders we've got across this kind of the patch here, and particularly across East Lancs, so that we've got those people in the community alongside people trained to do CPR, alongside those public access defibrillators that can respond to patients prior to our arrival. So to bring to a conclusion then, I guess very similar to what we said last year, but we can do all of this stuff. I guess the point is we can only do it if the community takes something on offer, and that's probably something that didn't happen in the last year. We came and talked to you about all this stuff, and we've done loads of stuff in NWAS, and you've seen there in terms of our improvement in performance. I think the next step for us over this next year is to really work with the community to bring some of those offers we've got, to spend some of that money that we've had donated for public access defibrillators, to really try and engage in some of those kind of local events and where you've got people together to be able to do that CPR training, and even simple stuff like next time you're having a council meeting, if it is a while since you've done any CPR practice, if you want us to come along for half an hour beforehand and run through some stuff with you, the more, you know, that means that you leave that meeting having a little bit of confidence in doing CPR. And we also want to work to promote our community first responders to bring in new recruits that can support us. And I'll stop there and happy to take any questions.
Just one more thing. We have just recruited 10 bank trainers.
All right,
for West Craven service.
Can do CPR training.
So I'm not going to be able to do it for everybody, but we've got 10 bank trainers who will be able to come out and do the training, which they've all been trained to do. So in all, you'll have 11 people. You've got definitely 2 in this area, so they all cover different areas, but you've definitely got 2 that cover this area. So it's worth contacting us if you need any training.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. And it's heartening to see the progress that's been made. I dare say colleagues might have 1 or 2 questions for you, but you'll appreciate we've got a full agenda, so we won't keep you too long. In terms of the response times, which, you know, we began asking about response times because of our concerns locally, and you've given us the averages over the northwest area, you've given the average for East Lancashire. If you drill down to the postcode areas, what sort of picture does that paint?
Yeah. So if you drill down to postcode areas in rural areas, it takes us longer to get an ambulance there. But I think we spoke about this when we came before. As an organisation, we're commissioned to provide a response across the northwest. We're not commissioned in individual postcode areas. Now that does cause some challenges because people who live in some of those postcode areas that are more rural and therefore get a longer response would probably say, you know, why am I any different to someone who lives in the centre of Manchester who might get a quicker response? But I guess that's not something we as an organisation can answer. That's what we're commissioned to deliver. What I would say is that's why we invest our time and energy when it comes to that community resilience into those communities where it takes us longer to get to. Because, as I say, you know, we can't be in every place all of the time, and therefore that's why we work with the Northwest Ambulance Service charity, who raise an awful lot of money to put into communities to make sure that we've got access to public access defibrillators. We fund the community responder schemes, and we try and make communities resilient. You know, it would be no surprise that it takes longer for ambulances to get to more rural locations, in the same way that lots of other people offer services in those locations. It may take longer to get to.
Okay, thank you. Just looking over to my left and the far end of the table there. Tom.
Thanks, Chair. Just looking at the East Lancashire sector then, the 90th percentile responses, which I think would be closer to what we see in this neck of the woods overall?
Not necessarily. Yeah, not necessarily. So we actually often see some of our longer delays not always in rural communities. And that tends to be, those 90th percentiles tend to come on those days where we have more significant hospital handover delays. So if you've got no ambulances available, all of your calls take longer to get to. That doesn't take out the fact that some of those longer responses will be in more rural communities, and some of that will be because it takes longer to get there when you're travelling than if an incident happens, for example, just outside an ambulance station.
Yeah. And for those who weren't here the last time, the categories 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep.
Do you go through what they mean?
Yeah, so category 1 is immediately life-threatening. So that's usually somebody in cardiac arrest, someone unconscious, someone who, if we don't get a response to relatively quickly, has a significant chance of dying. And they're the ones where, in essence, from an ambulance service perspective, you throw everything at it. So you're likely to get an ambulance, you may get a response car. If we've got a community first responder, you'll get a community first responder. When you ring up, you'll be told over the telephone where your nearest defib is and asked to go and collect it. So that's those acutely unwell, life-threatening patients. Category 2 is pretty much most of the other emergency situations. So that can be anything from someone having a heart attack to somebody with an open fractured leg. or somebody who's got significant abdominal pain or a severe headache, those kind of things. Category 3 and Category 4 calls tend to be calls that are less kind of less life-threatening. So Category 3 tends to be 999 calls where we've categorised it after triage as being something that isn't likely to potentially need an emergency ambulance anyway. We deal with an awful lot of our Category 3 calls over the telephone, and Category 4 tend to be, it's a mixture of stuff, but it tends to be things where, for example, a doctor has booked a patient going to hospital, or it's come from another healthcare professional, or it's kind of really a low-level call that wouldn't necessarily need an ambulance. And as I say, a lot of our Category 3 calls, the reason that they, for example, our response times are longer on Category 3 calls is because they're not acutely unwell and they can wait, and we prioritise our resources on those 1s and 2s, and a lot of them are actually just waiting for a telephone call back from a clinician in our control room who will manage them without needing to send an ambulance.
Nick?
So quite a few years ago I volunteered in the first response team, and there was a really good uptake on it.
Yeah.
It is quite a few years ago.
Yeah. When can you start back?
Yeah. What do you see as your top 3 or 4 reasons why you can't get people to come in as community first responders? And is there anything that locally we can do in terms of providing rooms for training, areas? You mentioned visiting events and things like that we've got, but is there anything more local?
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of reasons people aren't doing it, I don't think there are things that put people off. I think volunteering is quite cyclical anyway, isn't it? And if you're involved in the team before, you might have been there at one of those stages where it was a big team with lots of people. They do tend to drop off a little bit and then pick up again. We did see during COVID a few people kind of step out of volunteering. Some of that was because of some of our first responders are maybe a little bit older, and therefore they maybe kind of risk assessed whether it was the right thing to be doing during COVID. There was an awful lot of other things that they had to do during COVID, and some people might not have been wanting to kind of commit to putting themselves in that risky situation. In terms of what you can do, and that is a big thing, we are really keen to do some kind of targeted recruitment in this area. We have recruitment open anyway, so people can apply, but actually, and we do get a lot of people apply to be community first responders, but often not in the areas that we want them. So an opportunity to do some kind of targeted recruitment. If you think there are events or things happening in the community where you know there's going to be loads of people coming together, we would be more than happy to come along, promote the work the ambulance service does around CPR training and public access defibs, and also the kind of local team leader who looks after the CFR schemes in this area. He couldn't be with us this evening because we've got a prior engagement, but he said he'd love to come along and use some of those as an opportunity to kind of recruit for his teams.
Have we really linked back in, have you anyone's really linked back in with Inspire?
In terms of co-responding, for them responding for us?
No, sorry, just by trying to promote the community first responder scheme. That's how I got involved in the originally.
Well, we currently are doing some having conversations with Lancashire about co-responding.
Yeah, co-responding. I was thinking more of the community first responders. The reason why I ask is there's probably around about 60% of firefighters in Lancashire now who serve less than 5 years. So it gives you quite a young audience to kind of go into, tap into. And the on-call side of it, it does change really quickly.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure there'll be people of them 32 fire engines across Lancashire that you'll pick somebody up. I mean, even if you get one in rural spots.
It's a good point. I mean, we are doing a fair bit of work with Lancashire already. As I say, we're exploring opportunities for co-responding, aside of the fact that there are still some trade union challenges that we need to come around that. But we also been doing some work with Lancashire non-frontline staff who now respond for us and can actually respond during their work time as long as they're not committed to something that they can't come out of. But yeah, we can explore that. The only challenge we might get back from fire around that is that I know that they struggle with recruitment for retained crews as well, and there is a risk, isn't there, that if people are volunteering for retained crew, and volunteering for us, that you know the pager goes off and they're on a medical job and they can't respond. So we just need to get a balance right. But yeah, we'll pick that up. We meet with them regularly.
North Yorkshire's done a really good sort of trying thing with them, where they looked at the police community support officer, the community first responder, and on-call firefighter, and tried to marry all three roles in one. I think it'd be difficult in Barn Allswick to get that, but I certainly think the dual role is doable. And in local areas around here as well.
Oh, we'll take that away. Like I say, we meet with Lights Fire all the time, and they are really supportive of our CFR schemes, and they've got a number of their community fire safety staff that respond for us. They've also got some of their kind of flexi duty staff that are coming on board to respond for us. So that's a question I can ask them on the next meeting.
Are there any further questions or comments? Tom? Or David?
Do you go into such places like Rolls-Royce and Silent Night, which are local big factories, offering training to the people in there?
So we need to be a little bit cautious, because they have a legal requirement to make sure that some of their staff are trained anyway, don't they? So things like first aid at work. The challenge with places like that is that not all of the staff live in the community. So if we go in and train them, during the day they're not available, because it's usually unlikely that their workplace will allow people to come out to respond to emergencies. And then out of hours they leave the community and go back to potentially where they live that isn't here. So we'd much rather invest our time in people who kind of live in the community. But you know, if people think there are places we can go and explore, trying to get people either for training or to recruit into the CFRs, and we can look into that. But we'd much rather engage with people that you know that we know live in the community.
Tom?
Thank you. Just a question on the hospital handover. I mean, I see the overall strategy of trying to reduce the need to bring people to hospital. And I assume that's going well over the period you've been doing it. However, the hospital handover time has doubled since this time last year. I mean, what's the main cause for that? What's the strategy to try and reduce that waiting time at the hospital handover?
I'll give a very brief context and I'll hand over to Dave to talk about the local piece. So this isn't just a challenge, and you'll know this anyway, it's in the media. This isn't just a challenge here. It's not just a challenge in the North West, it's a challenge across the whole of the UK. Actually, in the North West, we don't see some of the signs of challenge of hospital turnaround that maybe some other bits of the UK do see. You know, you'll probably seen in the media, Wales has some terrible handover times. The south of England struggle more than we do. But we recognise that it eats into our resource availability hours. So we do work closely with the acute hospitals. The challenge is it's not ours on our own to fix, because it's a problem that's caused by the fact that the hospitals can't move people out of EDs, so their EDs are full, so we've got nowhere to put the patient. They can't move out of EDs because all their wards are full. They can't move out their wards because there's patients on those wards that may be waiting to go into the community and receive care in the community. So it's a whole system issue. So it's a really, really complex one, and it's one that you know we work really hard as a system to try and find the answers to. But I'm you know, got to be honest about this. If there was a simple answer, we'd have found it and we wouldn't have these problems. That aside, there's a lot of work going on.
Yeah, I mean, we as a local team, obviously, we travel back with Airedale on a daily basis with their management teams. We send, every time we are experiencing delays, we send a manager from our team, you know, it's a small team, up to ED to link in with managers and try. One thing we are, if you think the handover split into two sections, so there's from when the ambulance arrives outside to you hand the patient over, then there's you've got to clean your stretcher, clean your equipment, and be ready for the next call. We're really consistent on the ones we've handed over, generally under 10 minutes, which is pretty good going. I think it's average 15, really, it used to be. The delays we see is, like Matt said, it's just, I don't know if any of you have the unfortunate experience to go in this last 12 months. It's a very difficult place to be for friends and relatives, and it's about not working against them. We have to work in partnership, because you know it's a very difficult place to work. So it's around collaboration. We're doing quite a few. They're enhancing the community provision, which lets us detail that, referring patients to the community. That, you know, it's not an answer, but it releases some of the pressure on taking patients through these. So it's a multi-pronged approach, really.
Okay.
And there are there's two bits in our gift, and Dave talked about one there, which is take less patients to hospital. So if we can manage them in the community, we'll do that. The second piece is we also do something called cohorting, which means that if we've got, say, 5 or 6 ambulances outside the hospital, and that's reducing the amount of ambulances we have to respond, we'll get the clinicians off one ambulance to look after multiple patients, and that frees up some of the other ambulances. So we are doing things that are in our gift, and we're working with our partners to try and do system stuff.
Thank you. Last question from Chris.
Thank you. Coming back to CFR recruitment, excuse me. You mentioned about younger people. Are you doing anything actively specifically with youth groups, sixth forms, this and that?
We do a lot of work within schools. We do a lot of like drop-down days. So when they're about to leave school, we have like a full, well, it's usually half a day, and we talk about what they can do and become a community first responder. And you do get some interested. You know, if we get one person out of that school, then we've done our job. You've got to look at a lot of schools we do go into, and it is an age thing, but we also go into colleges and to universities, and we're doing a lot of work now recruiting like trained doctors that are coming on board as CFRs. We've trained a lot up in Lancaster over the last few years, so there's different age groups, but yeah, I think
one of the key things in the school stuff though is that if we can get into a school, if we can do CPR training in a school when someone's say 14, 15, 16, it's likely they're going to remember that for the rest of their life. Once we know that once people get a little bit older, that you teach them these things and sometimes they forget them. And if you ring 999 now and someone's collapsed, we'll give you advice over the telephone how to do CPR, but we know it's much better quality if that person's trained to do it. So we do a fair amount of work with young people because, let's face it, they're going to be the ones that are around when I collapse, and I'm hoping that one of them will know CPR.
Okay. Can we thank you very much for coming along this evening? I think in terms of takeaways, CFR recruitment and provision of defibrillators are areas where we might be able to assist. Certainly in both Palms we can DAB, we've got a busy event calendar, so we'd be delighted if you could come along and do a session. Yeah, I'm not sure that our band on the square would be the best one to come to.
It's that time of year as well where we are doing a lot of events, so it's good to get out into the communities.
Okay.
Last year at this time, I trained 2,600 on one park over a full aid set. It was amazing, everyone got involved.
Okay.
It's things like that that I want to push and get, and you'll have my email, and you can email me and I will attend if I've got the availability.
Lovely. Can we thank you all very much for coming along? Can I suggest that, given the progress that you've demonstrably made, that we wouldn't necessarily say, well, can you come back in 12 months? However, I think if you could update us with performance figures, whether it's 12 months away or not, and you know, if we think, oh, hang on a minute, it's going the wrong way.
Happy to do that.
Yeah.
No, that's good. And
Lovely.
and if you send us through a calendar of events, we can look at what we can support in terms of community engagement.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you. We're going to turn to another guest now, and item 8 is police and community safety issues. We've got Laura who's stepped in, doesn't cover our area, and she's on response, so might have to dash out at any point. Do you want to just introduce what's been going on, or is that unfair?
No, I can, well, give it a good go anyway. If I can't answer your questions, I'll take anything back to the Sergeant and the Inspector and we'll get an answer for you at some point. I think just looking at obviously the crime figures, the main thing that I imagine everyone's going to be concerned about is going to be the spike in ASB that we have seen. That's something that PCSO Wallin, I guess some of you probably know him, our little Australian PCSO, he does a lot of good work around that, working with the youth. He's been updating the patrol plan to ensure that a lot of the incident locations where these have occurred, which is primarily sort of town centre, groups of youth at night, you know, out with the friends acting up. He's been, like I say, adopting that patrol plan, and he's had a couple of issues with specific groups where he has taken them to their parents. He's put things in that we call youth referrals, which is sort of an entry, if you will, to diversionary education around stopping youth from getting into a path of ASB, which may then lead into crime, and sort of trying to tackle that head on. There's a panel that meet every month to assess the instance of what's occurred and see how they can, you know, deal with that, tackle it, stop it becoming a bigger issue. So I know he's put quite a number of them in for panels over the past month, so hopefully that's going to have a bit of an impact and we won't see that same trajectory going forward into May.
Okay, thank you. Just picking up on one issue there, in Glen Oldswick there's been there is quite a persistent problem with youths around the Civic Hall and entering the building. Last night they had the brass band practicing, and they were invaded with a group of youths, one of whom was quite brazen and you know, posed for his picture being taken as he was climbing up onto the roof of the bush shelter opposite. So as a priority, I think people from Barwick would say you know, that's one that we want to concentrate on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we would agree. It is an issue for us. It's an issue that we are trying to tackle. Neil obviously can't do it by himself, so we're sort of putting things in place to ensure. I know even the sergeant's been up on the weekends when he's in doing sort of patrolling at night, just to try and A, provide that reassurance, and B, that deterrent that we know occurs when police are present. But yeah.
Okay. Questions, comments, Mick?
Just very quickly, in terms of numbers rising, it's kind of a backhanded compliment because it means that some action is being taken, and you know, we could quite easily sit here with looking at minus numbers or very, very small numbers and say, oh, it's not a problem when we really know it is. So to see sort of an uplift in numbers around the areas that we constantly sort of discuss at these meetings, it's not for you to take back, but if you could pass on to your sergeant and inspector and Neil, for me, and I spoke about it with Pendle Council, I think we need to see sort of a more detailed action plan as to what's happening around the numbers. Going from one number to another every month doesn't really give us an idea as to what we're doing or what the police are doing, what they're putting in place. It's just a number. And if it goes down, everyone goes, oh, that's all right, it's gone down. If it goes up, we go, well, we've caught more this month. And it don't really put any detail into what we actually are doing to reduce them or address the issue. So if they could do that, I mean, I'm happy to catch up with them at any point just to sort of like put a bit more sort of meat on the bone. It's not your bag to take back, I get that, you're in a different area, but I just think that's what they need to start doing. We need to just have a more detailed picture of what's actually happening across all subjects.
Bit qualitative, not quantitative, yeah. Absolutely, I'll pass that back for sure.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions?
Could I ask?
Chris, thank you.
I know that when we've discussed this in the past about the infrequency of seeing uniforms and cars around, the answer, and the correct answer obviously, is that there is other activity going on that people don't see. There's a great deal of discussion, especially on social media, which is a curse in every way, obviously. Everybody complaining that they don't see, that there aren't enough police around. And I think the net effect of that is that the people who want to know that there aren't enough police around are learning that and thinking this is a good place come to and do their worst. Is there any more that can be done in terms of visibility?
Yeah, I mean, again, I can pass that back. The issue, obviously, as I'm sure you appreciate, is staffing. That's across the board. It's obviously not just for West Craven.
Sure.
We have recently, due to recent events that have been going on in Barnoldswick, it has been a massive part of what we've been patrolling, especially at night time, be that it's 3 o'clock in the morning and we're doing bail checks, or be that during the day. I've been here for a couple of hours today, driving around and going to incidents, and unfortunately, if we get an incident, that's where we have to go, and we can't just do, obviously, that walking around and patrolling. But hopefully it's something that we can work on. Again, I'll pass that back. I'll explain that you want a bit more visibility, and as and when that can be afforded, I'm sure we can do.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything further? In which case, can we thank you very much for coming along this evening. Let you go back to day job.
Thank you very much.
I hope that the NY's presentation was informative.
I think we're all strapped out of it. Right, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go on to planning applications now, and we have got Carl Mather to speak on the Strongly Back one, which is the first one, and then Rebecca Dennis, to speak on Brook Shed. Excuse me. Neil, he's playing with his PowerPoint.
Turn it off, Chairman.
Have you got any slides? No. Okay. So, looking at the retention of vehicle display boundary fencing to land to the east of Strongly Bank, Cock Road, Calbrook. Carl, do you want to say anything?
I'd just like to say that we looked at what you suggested and we've added it to the plans. We've submitted it here.
Okay.
Everything that we discussed, we put in there. There weren't a lot to say, but just in case there are any more objections, that's all.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah, just we've done what we like.
Yeah. I think one issue which was picked up at the last committee meeting was the impact on the people on the opposite side of the beck, and although Neil stressed that that's not necessarily a public view, there's still an issue there. Is there anything further that you could do in order to screen that aspect?
It's an hard one because, like I say, there's not necessarily, in our view, there's not a lot we can do, really. So obviously we looked at the greenery at the front as we've been asked in line with planning, but there was a lot of issues raised by the individuals, so I'm not exactly sure what we can do to help that. But obviously we've looked at the frontage as requested.
Okay.
In line with planning, that's what we've done.
Thank you. Have you got any further comments?
No, it's just not really.
All right. Well, if there are any questions of the applicant, ask them now.
Can I?
Sharon.
Last time, Sharon from Pendle Council. Last time, what you've just been saying there. No, last time we discussed obviously the lowering of the fencing and the greenery at the front, which I've seen is in the plans, which is so that takes away our objections. But we did discuss, like you just said, some sort of screening at the back. Now Euravia have got some like hedgerow screening that just as an aid to, like you said, to the people that live along the back, just a bit of noise dulling and a bit of privacy. So I don't know if, say that's Euravia have got some along the back.
There is a fence there.
Is there a fence?
Yeah, there's already a fence, and as an aspect for the noise, it's a long way away.
Yeah.
And there's only the odd people that are coming now and again to have a look. There's not constant noise or anything that's been made out. So it's hard to try and assist with something that's not really there. It's a very quiet.
So it's already screened with a fence, is that what you're saying? Yeah.
It's a long way across the back and then up a lot of frontage back over the side. The house is a long way away and then there's a driveway. So I don't know how much sound is. There's a lot more noise next door from other things than what we.
Just I know it was mentioned, wasn't it? Just like you just said, it was mentioned something about screening. Yeah.
We've done the edgeway, we've done everything that's within line.
I know all the front's been dealt with, but there's nothing about along the back.
Well, the back's got a fence in it, it's got a wall and a fence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is.
All right, that was my question.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Neil, anything that you want to add?
Yes, Joe, just to so the committee are clear on what's being proposed. There's a fencing, Law Pal said it will be permitted development, it will be green and we'd have details of that, that's fine. In front of it you wanted some kind of hedgerow. What's come forward is more like pot planting hedgerow as opposed to a natural hedge. So I wanted you to be clear on that so that is. So we had to look it up. It was a Latin phrase for the planting, but it is like pot plants so high. So it's not as you would envisage a natural hawthorn hedge. Okay, that's what was on the submitted plans. So just so you're clear.
Sorry.
So, Carl, well, I'll let you come back in, but then I think we'll have to draw a line.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
I just want you to be clear on that, Chairman, so that if the planting did go in, we expected something different or not, just so you're clear.
Right, so basically you're not thinking of putting like natural hedging up to eventually grow up and hide it, or they're just going to be like little box plants in plant pots?
Yeah.
Well, that's not what I've been told for what I bought, though. It will all come together. We're planting it every couple of foot, and then it will grow together over time. So it will create
a natural.
That's what my understanding completely is, from what I bought, It's called box edging, and that's what it does. Because obviously we can't just put an edge in, if you will. It's got to kind of grow to one, if you know what I mean.
No.
If that helps any.
Okay. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll bring you back in again. Right, what does the committee want to do?
Sorry, Chair, I just think we looked at all the aspects in some detail at the last meeting, and clearly the applicant's gone away, changed it to the requirements or as near to requirements that we've got. I totally get that, the back, but I had a bit of a walk around and had a look, because there's the footpath down the side of the pub there, isn't there? I had a walk over. It's going to be very difficult to put anything on that back side because of the issues that you've got with the fence, the wall, the brook, etc. So you couldn't really plant anything. I don't think anything would ever take anyway. I think a better understanding of how that back will look will come over the next few months as it starts to flourish and actually become solid. I think the winter time it gives it very, very bare. And I know that for the residents that'll be the time when it causes them the problem, but I can't see any noise because it's caravans for sale. There's not a great lot of noise and bits stuff like that, considering the commercial aspects of further down the road. Yes, that metal fence when you start on that corner, it does jump out at you, but we'll address that in the reduction of its height and then putting the box planting around the front. For me, I think that given that we've pretty much exhausted all the requirements that we asked of the applicant, I move that we'll go forward with it now and accept it and let's get on with it.
Okay, that's moved. Is it seconded?
Yes, Chair, I agree with Councillor Strickland and second that.
Okay. Any further comments? Okay, I shall put that to the vote. Those in favour, please show. Thank you very much, that's carried. Okay, we're going to go on to the next one then. which is change of use of land to provide 18 static caravan pitches, 15 touring caravan camper van pitches at Lower Green Hill caravan site. I don't have a speaker. There is an update that has been circulated. Not sure whether all committee members have seen that. Yeah, it was emailed around this afternoon. And Neil, do you want to just run through this quickly?
Yes, Chairman. Application to extend the caravan park. It's near the. It's not a public footpath, but it's on the track that runs to the what would be the southeast. If I get my bearings right, Chairman. Statics at the front near the track, and then tours elsewhere, Chairman. And the planting scheme involved, one of the issues, the main issue, well, not perhaps the main issue, but one of the big issues is surrounding drainage. That will be drained with the proposal now to porous surfaces into an attenuation pond, which in turn would then have a restricted flow into the other attenuation pond that is there, attenuation feature. That is the outstanding matter that we as officers have at the moment. That information has gone to the drainage bodies, and we haven't got a response as to whether the technical calculations, etc., are correct. So, Chairman, the recommendation is still delegate grant consent because of that one outstanding matter, Chairman.
Okay. Neil, could I ask about impact on the landscape? Obviously, we've got an application that we refused that's been being appealed. We turned that down on impact on the landscape. Now, this is another segment of the land in the ownership of the people that have got the caravan park. So, would it be reasonable for us to consider the cumulative impact on the landscape, and is that the ground that we should take into account?
It clearly is something you can take into account. Just look at the chronology of this, though, in some senses. I think the landscape impact of the refuse scheme will be far more significant than this scheme. That's my professional judgment. It's higher. It doesn't have the hill that partially screens it from the, shall we say, the westerly direction. You will see it extends, elongates the caravan site. If that were approved, I think that would be a much bigger impact than this section. But yes, clearly this section would cumulatively make the development larger. Chairman, I'm hopeful that the inspector will say actually the top section is, we're still waiting for this, is a step too far, it is visually intrusive. But I don't actually think that the bottom section has that level of impact from that many directions. It does rise up. You do have a banking to the rear that will mask it from the, probably getting my directions here, from the north, shall we say, from the top side, and then from the west it will. So the impact will be from mainly along Calvert Road, where there will be screening, and I think assimilated with the existing caravan park, that is going to be a difficult one to refuse singularly, Chairman.
Okay. And I mean, the views from the south will be impacted by the proposal, and it's not just during the daytime. When you come from Calbrook of a night time, there's quite a considerable amount of light, either coming from the vans, statics, or from the footway or driveway lighting. So it's not just looking at it from a distance and how intrusive it is. It's looking at that evening as well. Is that a legitimate concern?
Absolutely is, Chairman, yeah. And you can pursue it, certainly a valid reason. How it would stand an appeal is obviously something that the committee will debate, but certainly is a planning issue. I'll just go back, Chairman, to the decision of the inspector on the refuse scheme, which was approved and appealed, and the comments were about its low-lying nature and being adjacent to the caravan site. And that we faced that argument again with that. So just be aware in your decision, Chairman, of that decision from the inspector, who said it was low-lying, said it was adjacent to the caravan park. I think the natural topography of the land is probably the break that you would have on the expansion of that caravan site. But Chairman, your question was, is it a legitimate concern? And yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Comments, colleagues? Or rush at once? Chris?
Looking at the chronology of the two, we have somebody putting in an application for one at the same time as the other appeal is pending. Do we know if either one would be an either or? Would it be something that we should consider after hearing the appeal, or do these take a long time?
I don't think we've got the luxury of deferring this.
No.
So I think we do need to come to a decision.
I'll take that. Thank you.
Is there anything that we
Susan.
could... sorry. Is there anything that we could suggest that would ameliorate this problem with the land?
You can ask for a low-level lighting scheme with the Institute of Lighting Engineers. They have low lighting, but people open the caravan windows. I think that's going to be as much as an issue as low-level lighting. You can have directional lighting down. That usually works quite well. And low-level lighting for people walking, that's generally relatively not obtrusive. But we're not going to mass people open the caravan windows or open the blind, and that I think would be perhaps the biggest impact.
I think you're going to bring a lot more traffic into the site, and especially with the concern that's coming up later on in the meeting about the school children that's going to have to be walked down that road from Saltyfirth and around to the Saltyfirth Primary School. It's a huge concern for parents. You know, at that time of day, you're going to have people going in and out to work, because they're not just going to be up there for holidays, they're going to be going out for, you know, to get back to work, and the school kids are going to have to walk that route because the bus passes have been taken off them. They're going to be hugely affected.
Okay. I think in part that's covered by the County Council's concern and their requirement to have further work done, and again looking at the cumulative impact of the appeal site and this one. I mean, there aren't any other applications in at the moment, but the County Council's concerns would pick that up in terms of putting a right turn provision in there. Frankly, I'm a bit concerned about that because we've had several shunts along Kelbrook Road.
It's a very serious one in the last month.
Yeah, so, you know, if there's a right turn provision and somebody's coming down at speed, the potential issues in terms of the safety aspect there. Okay, there didn't seem to be any great enthusiasm for putting something on the table, so I'm going to propose that we refuse this on the basis of impact on the landscape, not only looking at the daytime but the evenings with the lighting, and I'll take Mr Watson's advice on this, but the other issues that are still to be determined are the transport assessment, which the County Council are saying, you know, there needs to be further work on that. And the other one is the drainage, where we don't have a response from the lead local flood authority. So would it be reasonable for us to include those in refusing, or can we handle that differently?
So in terms of the drainage, it would be a similar principle that we had at Conley and at Kelbrook, where we refused when the applicants had given us further information, and that the planning inspector awarded costs against the council as being unreasonable to do that because they've got that information. So I mean, in drainage, we should wait for the lead local flood authority if you're in any doubt about drainage, and then make a decision there. So if you look at highways here, it is a 10 metre wide carriageway. It can have turning provision put in there. It's not. I get the points made about highways and about highway concern, but it's not an unusual carriageway. There are always ways you can make carriageways safer. Chairman, one of the conditions proposed there is that they put a scheme in to do that. So I think that would be a very, and certainly the barrister we use will normally say highways are difficult if there is a way of providing a technical solution. And I think there is one here. So my advice would be, A, it's premature on drainage, and B, highways is going to be such a difficult one to try and refuse on.
So in those circumstances, I would just include the impact on the landscape as a reason for refusal, but acknowledging these other issues are outstanding and would need to be addressed as part of any appeal process and the like. So I move that. Is it seconded?
Yeah, seconded.
It's seconded. Any contrary to that? All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. Anybody against? No. Okay. Right. We'll come on to the last, I think it's the last planning application. We've only been going an hour and a quarter. And our next speaker is on the Brook Shed development. And we've got Rebecca for Gleeson. Rebecca, you can come up here if you want. We can probably hear you better.
Thank you. I'm sure you can hear me now that I've sat closer. Good evening, everyone. As the chair said, my name is Rebecca. I'm from Pegasus Planning Group, the agent for the application, and I'm here with Johnson Mulk from Gleeson, who's the applicant developer. So last September, Gleeson were delighted that delegated authority was given to grant consent for the redevelopment of this site to deliver new homes in Irby. Since the permission was granted, Gleeson submitted a lot of detail to discharge 20 or so planning conditions, covering things like highways, drainage, landscaping, ecology. All the details that were submitted were found acceptable to the statutory consultees, which included the Highways Authority, Lead Local Flood Authority, Environment Agency, Historic Environment Team and Yorkshire Water. We are aware from the committee report that Yorkshire Water have raised an holding objection to this application now, but I think potentially it's an error.
So, Chairman, it has, it's going to be an update, it has been withdrawn today.
Great. I was going to, what I was going to say there then. Since permission was granted as well, Gleeson commissioned historic recording of the buildings and structures on the site, including the weaving shed, boiler house, engine house and air raid shelters. And the report has now been deposited with the Lancashire Historic Environment Record. Since permission was granted, the full scale of the challenges in redeveloping the site has, however, meant that the materials listed on 3 of the conditions aren't feasible. To To facilitate the development coming forward, what is proposed instead are good quality alternatives that are natural in appearance, so the reconstituted stone, which matches the colour of stone used elsewhere, and a thin leading edge concrete tile, which is slate-like in appearance. These materials will be used throughout the site, so not just on the new road frontage, to provide coherent development. Not only that, and as set out in the updated report, the alternative materials don't make a difference to the overall heritage effects or the balancing exercise which has been undertaken by officers. And like I say, they're also necessary for development to come forward as planned. So we are pleased to see the officers' recommendation and the support for the alternative materials, and having considered the heritage and viability evidence, we hope that you can also support these alternative materials that are proposed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn to Neil. You mentioned an update. Neil, what else is included within that update?
Chairman, the main update on that was Yorkshire Water that's withdrawn their objection. Other than that, Chairman, it's just noting a comment from our conservation consultants who basically is just reiterating the balance that every council has to do when there's accepted harm to the significance of a heritage asset, which is a conservation area here, and it's that balance between the harm to that and the public benefits that come from it, Chairman. So there's a lot of technical information in here about discharging conditions, but I think the main issue revolves around the materials on the frontage, where New Road we wanted stone and wood windows, and then the proposal now is the reconstituted stone, the artificial roof materials, and the green coloured conservation windows, with the rest of the site now being reconstituted stone proposed with light UPVC windows. Chairman, I think that's ultimately the issue, whether the planning balance is that the impact on the applicants accept there is a harm to the heritage asset, whether that's outweighed by the housing, the public benefits, the redevelopment of the site, supply chain, etc.
Okay, so there's a lot of discharge of conditions which there may not be any issues with. I'll say there may not be any issues with, and it's the materials that we are particularly looking at.
Are you using lesser quality materials, and it's obviously costing you less to build the houses? Are then the houses going to come down in price to an affordable rate for the local residents?
When we submitted the application originally, we didn't propose the natural materials. The site has always been designed, and the scheme has always been predicated on the fact that the materials that we're trying to seek approval for now have fed into the viability appraisal of the scheme. The situation that we sort of ended up in is the application came to committee, I think back in May last year, and natural materials were added as a condition, but it's never been factored into the viability. You know, the difference of providing the natural materials came after the scheme had been developed and the site had been optioned, so it came after.
Right, so the answer is no, basically. You want to use lesser quality materials, but you don't want to reduce the price to the people. Yeah, it's a simple yes or no answer.
The price of the properties hasn't changed.
Right, okay. It's West.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, Tom.
When we deliberated grant consent for this originally, I saw a benefit to the site, which was a connection, a footpath or cycle connection through the south boundary to the local road network there. And I just wonder, has that proposal progressed at all with yourselves? Would you be willing to include that as an added benefit to the site within this?
Yeah, we did take that away and have a look at that following, I think it was the September committee, but it isn't something owing to the position of it, the location, the levels in that area. And also I understand that it wouldn't get adopted, or it needs to be to adoptable standards for
Thanks, Lee.
Johnson, I'll bring you in. Go on.
Okay. Just to follow on from Rebecca said there, obviously we've had a look at that. This potential not happening. Unfortunately, it's on one base of land between Moston Avenue and the adopted highway. So if that wasn't the case, then obviously we could propose that and then office it under section 38. But unfortunately, because it's unregistered, it would have to go through section 228, obviously through LCC, and we have no control over that because somebody may come out and actually claim title on that particular land, and that's kind of where it is at the moment.
Yes, thank you. We're going to go into a very technical discussion about the boundaries, but my understanding is that the adopted highway is coterminous with the site boundary of Brookshed, and the parcel is drawn with a gap between the Brookshed boundary and the fence of the end property on Moston Avenue. However, looking at it, the fact that there is a gate, or there was a gate, at the bottom of that street end, it would seem to me that the section of highway, unadopted highway, off the Longroyd Moston Avenue land highway would be unadopted street, and if you look at land ownership, generally the line goes down the middle of the road. So if you take that, it would be part of the landholding of now Gleeson's, and their Gleeson's could register that parcel of unregistered land in order to incorporate it within the site. So to my mind, there's an outstanding issue there that as a committee we did say we wanted to put that link in previously, and I think certainly Councillor Tom and myself are quite keen that we should do that. Neil, in terms of the process, and given the application we've got in front of us tonight, how would we deal with that?
Chairman, and it's up to you whether you want to bring it back to committee, but you could, if you wanted to approve the rest of it and delegate that to me, it will have to be to an officer in conjunction with yourself, Chairman. That might be the easiest way of expediting it and get a quick discussion with the applicant on whether that's feasible or not. That seems to me the most expeditious way, perhaps, Chairman, of dealing with it.
Okay. Right. So we've got that, which I think is a little bit of a separate issue. So can we go back to the substantive matters? Clearly, Neil, when we considered this previously, in terms of materials, we did want the new road to have a higher standard. I mean, I'm aware that we've got brick road just across the road, so it's not like everything's stone in that area. There is, I think the word would be pallet, wouldn't there? There is a broad palette of materials that are in the area. Would it be reasonable for us, Neil, to insist on that natural material palette.
So it's in your behest to come to the conclusion that the heritage impacts outweighs any benefit or the benefit to the scheme, which is the test in the National Planning Policy Framework, Chairman. I think at first perhaps is to look at the issue of viability. And there's a question Councillor asked earlier about price, and obviously developers will get whatever price they can get. They're there to do that. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But the viability appraisal looks at prices that you can get, assesses them, and looks at likely selling prices, and prices actually started to come down now. So of course it's a bit of a gamble for developers, but the viability appraisal, we've had one of our surveyors, Mr Brown, look at that, thinks it's reasonable. There's a bit of an art to these things, but it's as reasonable as you can get. Chairman, if you do insist, it's likely that it will become unviable. So the risk is then that development does not happen. And clearly that will be if there's a challenge to a decision, that will be where that challenge would be. So, Chairman, first of all, acknowledge whether you think the viability assessment is correct. My advice to you is, as far as we can, it is. And then that comes, if you insist on that, the development's not viable, the risk side that it doesn't go ahead because it's unviable, and then that's the planning balance that the NPPF wants you to take, Chairman. You get housing, jobs, a redeveloped site, supply chains, during the site, and the impacts of that will be not having stone at the front. So that's the balance you've got to take. It is a balance, but my view is that I think the site's better developed even with the materials which aren't quite as good.
Okay, so just to refresh my memory, the proposed materials on the previous applications were effectively they were both brick. They were brick rather than on the natural stone.
But not on the front.
No, it was the approval was for the natural stone. Yeah. Okay. Right. Amanda.
I was just wondering, is there any imagery so we can see what's been focused on? I know a lot of people in the group we've got the letters through. I haven't got a clue what the letters was, and even now looking at it wasn't exactly sure of anything. But I just think having some idea what it's going to look like compared to what it was going to look like before.
Okay.
I did have an image.
Visualise.
Is it going to power it on?
On the website, you can see
Well, it's up to you, but you should do really.
okay.
Amanda, I think the question there is very relevant. My suggestion would be that we agree to discharge the conditions that there isn't any argument. I think there's a hesitancy in terms of the high quality materials on the new road, and we need to understand more about what they are. So would it be acceptable to defer this for a month? Pick up the issue of the pedestrian cycle access off Longroyd, actually have real materials that we can see. Yeah?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry. The plinth thing. Yeah, well, we unless that until that's done.
Yeah.
It didn't discharge.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But what is it?
Okay, so the feature we need to understand what that is. David.
Have we discussed the issue around drainage? Because it's Gleason's have already lost 2 JCBs between now and Christmas because of the amount of water that is on the site, and it's taken them almost a week to dig one out. I don't know, because I live right opposite, and I've watched all this, and the water is still there. At the moment, your guys are spreading lime all over the village. If you'd like to look at that for me, this is taken just before I came out this evening. You can take that across. You're spreading lime all over the village.
Okay, so I think the relevance of that comment to the
the drainage is because the little cut, the cut will not take any more.
Yeah, I think in terms of the drainage, the Environment Agency laid down what had to be done.
And they wanted to be changed in here.
Well, that was a method of implementing it, as opposed to the area that's been set aside for flood compensation. I think in terms of the dust, there's a question mark as to whether the construction method statement being adhered to if there's so much dust being generated by moving the aggregate on the land. Can I suggest that we defer this to the next meeting? We've got various outstanding issues that we want to try and resolve. I think where we can discharge conditions that, where there isn't any contention, we can discharge them. Neil, is that?
The Chair, we'd have to do it all as one decision.
All one decision?
Yeah, if you're going to defer, just defer.
Okay.
And then we'll bring the whole thing back on.
Okay. Rebecca's desperate to come back in.
I'm a spokesperson now. Would it be possible if we could deal with the materials conditions today and defer the condition? Oh, sorry, you did just say you need to deal with them all in one go, didn't you?
Well, I think what Amanda was saying was that we want to see what the materials are. So it's a case of, we make his mind up when we're clear what's intended to be used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the materials were taken to site, weren't they, with a meeting and have been submitted. Sorry that they've not made the way over.
Okay. Are we agreed on that way forward? I'm getting nods, so formally move it, seconded it, and those in favour please show. Thank you very much. Right, we're nearly at the end of planning issues. There's the report just informing us about appeals. Can we note that? Yeah. We've got a report on enforcement action. Are we content to Neil?
Joe, just a note, we did ask the Environment Agency about Northern, it would be North Block 1, whether an application's been made to them. They haven't, so Chairman, and I've not had any response from the developer about where they're going with it, so really doesn't help us take that forward, I'm afraid.
Okay. Financial matters, area committee budget, that's informing us what there is available for doing on various schemes, and then the next following items are asking for funding for different things. So there's one specific application for funding which is from Salford Funday. I've sought to get a response from Salford Parish Council without success about whether they would support this. The application is for half of the whole of the funding that is earmarked for Salford. It is for an event that they use, the Fund Day Committee generates money which then they give to other people. So I think if we're sort of dispersing money to different organisations, like the toilet route could come straight to us rather than the decision is made by others. I'm not really keen on approving this. Tom?
Chairman, the bids refers to the hire of the tents, tables, chairs, etc. It's not a permanent improvement in the facility to have events. It's just for the hire of equipment. I think that should come out of the operating cost of the event, and that is part of what the events raise money for, to continue having that event. I don't think it's a sustainable model to ask for money from us every time we want to hold one. And I don't think it's something that the area committee budget should be funding in the long term. So I wouldn't support that.
Other views? Susan?
I agree that they're raising funds for local charities and good causes, but these good causes that need things doing could actually apply themselves to our committee without us funding another organisation for hire of their equipment. It should go to the actual people that need it rather than for hire of equipment.
Okay. Right, it's moved and seconded. Any further comments? Those in favour of turning this one down? Thank you. And the recommendations at the front of the report, are we agreeing to all of those? Yeah. That's moved, seconded, all in favour, thank you. Right, item 12 then, premises improvement grants. There's a brief report on what's been going on. There's a request to allocate a further £3,000 for Barlick and £3,000 for Earby in order to provide more grants for people, and maximum grants you probably only get 2 out of that. So, question, are there any comments on the scheme? And secondly, are we agreeing to allocate 3,000 from Van Olswick, 3,000 from the Earby allocation for further funding? Tom?
Mr. Chairman, I mean, this scheme hasn't had any applications through, but I don't see the need to increase its budget. I mean, it's £1,500 per premise, and the current allocation would be 2 for each township under that. So I don't see the need to increase from where it's at now.
Okay. It does say Van Olswick continues to show healthy interest in the grant scheme.
I don't
David?
Yeah, I don't think people know about it. I had to go looking for it when I got approved for the chapel. And when I put it up on the Talk, nobody knew about it. So I think there's a lot of new businesses that are starting to open up, which may well be benefited, such as the dog grooming place and things like that really need some good frontage, that I think there needs to be there. I think we even need the money and the people need to know that this is available.
Okay. I do know that the Town Council has been quite active in promoting this, certainly up Victoria Road. So, Amanda, did you want to come in?
No, I was just saying Diane has actually, she went to every single shop owner along Victoria Road to explain about it, and I think there was, I don't know if there was anyone who applied for it. I know there was someone who was definitely interested in paying for it.
Okay. Sharon?
It's different to this, but when we had the shop in Cole, we looked into this, and it's quite complex. Because obviously you've got to match, it's not, they don't give you £1,500, you've got to match fund that for one, so that's, and then the other one was you had to get a certain number of quotes, potentially three.
Minimum three.
I can't remember, it was a while back, and trying to get 3 quotes off anybody for anything is quite problematic. So I know we looked into it and sort of gave it a bad job because we couldn't get the quotes in. Nobody would come and quote, I think we might have got 1 quote, and then like you say, the match funding is not necessarily something that people can always do. So I think that's a bit of a barrier to people applying as well.
Okay. Well, Tom's suggesting that we don't allocate funding. Susan, bring you in.
There is a proposal to, that I've read somewhere amongst here that they reduce it to 2 quotes instead of 3.
Yeah.
Which does make sense because I understand that it can be quite difficult getting several quotes. And, but I mean, it does also say that they've had 6 enquiries in Year Bay and 4 enquiries in Barnholdswick. So if these people come forward with those, then there won't be enough money to fund the grant scheme.
Okay. Could I suggest a compromise that we ask for a further report giving us greater detail about the ones that are in the pipeline and the likelihood of those actually translating into reality, and we could come back to this. Yeah. And in the meantime, we appoint somebody from Barlick and somebody from AB Courts Ward who will be involved in scrutinising applications for approval should there be any budget and spend on this. Okay, I'll volunteer for AB Courts.
I've just been through the process, so I know exactly what needs to be done.
Right. Okay. I'm just a bit leery, David, if you've got a prejudicial pecuniary interest.
In what way?
Have you applied for a grant?
It's done. Well, it's all done. It's gone. It's through. It's been done.
So it's not in the process?
Right. Not in process? No. Okay. No. Yeah.
So,
right.
So is that figure wrong then?
Sorry, Sharon.
It's up to.
No, what I'm saying is that figure says there's been no applications, but you're saying you've made an application.
Well, I made that application
was
in
that last financial year?
December. So, and it took until February for it to go through. So,
well, that's slightly at odds.
That's what I'm saying, that figure's inaccurate then, isn't it, where it says there's been no applications.
Yeah.
Because you're saying you've made an application.
Yeah, I've been paid, it's gone through.
In here then.
So this is wrong.
Right, let's have a further report examining the issues that we've just flagged up. Yeah, looking at what's in the pipeline and finding out if David's application to the civil file is approved or not.
I'll show you different.
Okay, that's premises improvement grants, provision of litter, dog waste bins and etc. So, Mr Walker is saying
share for information, Chair, it's just the amount that's been spent on litter bin and dog waste bins over the last quarter, and it shows the locations where new bins have been erected.
Okay. So there's not a lot left in either area. Could I suggest that we do allocate a little bit of extra funding? Say £500 per area? Yeah? Okay. Thank you. Item 14, representation of outside bodies. We've just got Avery and Salterford Internal Drainage Board, and it's 2 out of the 3 ward councillors, so I'm more than happy to volunteer, he says. Anybody else volunteering?
I don't know.
Susan, okay. Thank you very much. Are we all agreed with that? Tom, you wanted to come in?
I just wanted to confirm our representative on Bancroft Mill Engine Museum as Chris. I don't know if that's with the area committee or with the full council.
Is it not an in perpetuity thing?
It might be.
Bancroft Mill Engine Museum. I think as a trustee, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Bancroft Mill Engine Museum trustee. Okay, so I think Tom's proposing Chris for that, if it needs to be renewed. Yeah? Okay. Which then takes us on to items for the discussion. So we've got several items here. The first one is to consider road safety in relation to horses on Salterford Lane, Salterford, and this came up because there was an unfortunate incident, and it's generally felt by people in Salterford that traffic isn't being observant enough of horses and the like. So my suggestion would be that we ask the county council if there are any measures that they can put in place in terms of warning signs or other ways to improve safety for horse riders. Anything further on that? No? Are we agreed with that?
No, definitely agreed.
Right. Second item, to consider problems with water flooding off the adopted highway on St James's Square on Aldwick, and I'm aware we have got residents here tonight. And it's only just gone 8:30, so I'm sure you've been enjoying yourselves. And this is an issue where the road which is adopted is at a higher level than the surrounding unadopted street. Water's flooding off the adopted highway. It hasn't got anywhere to go, although it would be possible to adjust the drainage so that it could be dealt with. And essentially the county council have been refusing to take action. I think that's changed very recently, where there might be a chink of them being prepared to do something, but I think the suggestion would be that we make representations to LCC asking them to make adequate provision for water running off the adopted highway to prevent the problems to the residents and the properties on St James Square. Yeah?
Chairman, can I just say something as well?
Yeah, you can.
It is also a public right of way through there.
Sorry, Chris, go on.
It is also a public right of way through there, even though the land is unadopted.
Yeah.
And it can at times get rather hazardous to the point where access to the front of our house is virtually inaccessible.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've seen video of when it's bad, and it is bad.
Yeah.
And given that it's actually flowing off the highway and then causing problems.
There's no drainage there whatsoever.
Yeah.
So some people have no options, but some of them are back-to-backs, so they have no other access.
Yeah.
It's an issue.
Okay, so we'll ask the county council to take action. We'll have a report back to committee to see what they're saying. Hopefully they might be getting the finger out and getting something done. Yeah?
Thank you.
Chairman, sorry, just in passing, I understand the situation because we've got a similar problem with our own contractor, and it is immensely frustrating. I know with those Lancashire put in or funded some partial provision, but it's still there. So I do sympathise, and anything that can be done should be.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. The next one, David, Church Lane, Kelbrook.
Yes, I've got a lovely call from a lady down there, Mrs. Beresford. I went down to see. She's got water coming out halfway up her drive, way sort of thing. Yorkshire Water's been out to look at it. They said there's no chlorine in it, so it's nothing to do with them. It just needs further investigation to find out where this water's coming from. Now, the lane going in is basically used as the main road into Kelbrook. When I was there, there was a car going past every 5-10 seconds. There's been a drain that's already been lifted there and looked inside where the water is, but it's just continuing to come. And Yorkshire Water says nothing to do with them because there's no chlorine in it. So where it's coming from, I think it just needs investigation.
Okay.
To find out.
I know the engineering services manager has picked this up and done some investigations. I think the place to go with it is Lancashire County Council.
Yeah.
It's coming up through their highway.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first port of call. Might be defective drainage, which the County Council could be responsible for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we agreed then that we take that to the County Council. Item D, to consider encroachment and building rubble spoil affecting Ousledale, Clough Park. And this is... Sorry, have we got an update?
Yes, Chair, I can just verbal update if you know.
We've got lots of writing there, haven't we?
I certainly have, Chair, yeah. This work went on Friday, Chair, so it came in late last week, so apologies for not being able to share it before the meeting. The site visit has taken place with the construction manager of the site at the moment. There's a list of actions that have been recommended following the site visit, including the removal of stone, rubble, etc., and the repairs to the paths within the park if any damage is caused. Revisits with officers to sign off work at different stages, suggestion of 14 days for the work, for the revisit, and we're issuing a community protection warning listing those items, those actions that are required against the developer.
Very good. Would it be sensible to have a report to committee to see if this actually happens?
Certainly, Chair.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's nothing but just done. I know it says rubble and spoil affecting it. It's literally, when you walk past it, it's everything that's come out of the building side has been thrown down the banking and that's made its way into the footpath area around Clough Park. Just disgusting, really, from a contracting point of view, that it just throws it all down there and you can get away with it. So that's really encouraging to people about that.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Two areas where there's subsidence. I think one of these is Councillor Tom Whip's Bec Noir. Clifford Street, where the road is subsiding into the adjacent land, which is the responsibility of the county council. And the other one is the gable end of Eden Street and Havre Park, which is Avian Courts ward, where again there's considerable subsidence and it floods a lot. So again, I think these are both Lancashire County Council issues. Anybody want to come in on it? No?
Chair, just quickly, it just says the gable end of Edith Street and Havre Park and Clifford Street, so is that 3? Because Edith Street and Havre Park are nowhere near each other.
Sorry, Ethel Street.
Ethel, right, that's all right.
That's what I was just looking up, because I don't remember an Edith Street there, but it was definitely, because I used to live there.
No, you didn't. not in that gable
On
end.
Everett Street,
Yes.
yes.
Right, my apologies, that would have been my error. Okay. Yeah, so we asked the County Council, well, draw the problem to their attention and ask what we're going to do about it. Yeah? Condition of stream and steam interpretation boards. This has come from our litter picking group, and the concern that the backing boards are rotting, and as a consequence they certainly don't look very good from the back, but the wider concern is how much longer they'll last. So I think they are the responsibility of Pendle Council, so I think we want to report on what can we do to repair them, how much it's going to cost. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. To consider homeschool transport from Northholm Abbey to Salterford Primary School. This goes back a long number of years when we got the route from Northholm to Salterford D approved. It wasn't that acceptable for children to walk to primary school on it. And as a consequence, the measured 3 miles, which was the distance that qualified you for home school transport, was measured to Calbrook and then along the A56 and then up Salterford Road. And as a consequence, residents on Northholm qualified for home school transport. County Council have changed that recently, and that's causing quite a lot of consternation. David?
Yeah, it is. It's basically, and even on a good day, I walked it the other day, and it took me 55 minutes with the dog to walk from Northholm around to Salford School. You know, the dog's obviously stopping and sniffing, but they've got kids, under the kids, and some of them with push chairs. The kids are going to stop on the way, so it's going to take a good hour, 10 minutes to get there. And my point is as well, it's not just that, it's unsafe as you're coming around the corner to Salterford to go up to Salterford School. There is no crossing, there are no pavements, and you've got everybody backwards and forwards in doing the school run, trying to get from Salterford School back to West Craven or wherever they're going, and it's just going to be just as dangerous around that area because there is no official crossing and there's no pavements.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, it really needs some addressing from whoever it is that they need to address.
Well, I mean, clearly, homeschool transport is responsibility of the county council. It was previously available. It for whatever reason, it's been ended. We don't know why. So I think we need to take it up with the county council, ask why it's been withdrawn, and make representations to get it reinstated. Tom?
Thanks, Chair. I think we need to do a two-pronged approach on this. If the route from Northorne to Salterford was made safer, and there is a public footpath which goes across the fields there to the bridleway. If there was a proper route to that public footpath and the pavements on the road network on Northorne Estate, it would be an acceptable route to walk to school. Just the reality is that that stretch of road there between the public footpath and Amy proper is just so narrow and so full of speeding cars that it's just not acceptable. So I think also we should be demanding the county council make a link there which is acceptable. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to achieve that through planning previously, with the applications on both sides of the road there, but there must be a solution out there. And I know from experience, trying to get an engineering solution from the county council for road safety issues is high into nothing, but we might as well bloody try.
Okay, so Tom is suggesting there that we, as well as making representations about the changes in whatever the policy, that we actually inquire as to whether the county council would implement any improvements that would make that a safe route. Yeah?
I think we need to present it to the county council as either you do this or you do this. You can't get away with neither.
Okay.
Well, that, I mean, with the sort of like having greenways and things like that, is that environmental thing?
Pass.
So if it stops parents from driving the kids to school every day, I think it is a green benefit.
Okay, are we agreed on that? Yeah? Right, outstanding items. I'm glancing to see whether Mr Walker's got a sheet of paper here. It does say updates will be provided to a future meeting. Have we got anything for this meeting?
Nothing to say, Chair.
No? Okay. Right. I know that there are some meetings have been or are being set up, which brings us to the point on the agenda where we exclude public and press due to the next items of business being confidential. Would somebody move that as yeah, moved and seconded? Thank you very much. Those in favour? Okay, right. So we're going into private session. We're saying bye-bye to anybody that might be